In this episode of the Military Mindset for Business podcast, I'm talking with Rach Ranton. Now, super cool story. Rachel is an Army electronic warfare specialist, and she's been on the front line of combat operations in Afghanistan and East Timor. She had an amazing career as a business banker, and then she got fired. So let's talk Rachel. Hey there. My name's Pete Liston, and welcome to the Military Mindset for Business podcast, which is the podcast for the veteran business community. And today I'm chatting to Rach Ranton. How you going, Rach?
Hey, I'm great, Pete. Thanks so much for having me on.
Pleasure. Now, I've been following Rachel for quite a few years. The first time I came across Rachel was about 2018 when you were the inaugural winner, I think, of Veteran Employee of the Year at Westpac Bank. Was that right?
Yeah. I was not expecting that at all. I'd just been doing my regular work, and someone nominated me for the award when in its very first year that started, and I met the other people who were the finalists and said to my partner, like, don't worry about coming along. I'm obviously not going to win this. So just took some mates, said, come to Canberra with me for a visit. Yeah, was absolutely shocked and really honoured to be named the inaugural Veteran Employee of the Year.
Yeah, well, that's when you sort of first came on my radar because I don't mean to tip my own hat, but we also won an award that year for Veteran
Congratulations.
Employer of the Year. And then I saw you a couple of years later where you actually the hostess with the mostess for the night with Damian Tomlinson.
Oh yeah, Damo, what a funny bloke. Love it.
Well, funny enough, I'm going to get him on here soon because Damien lives just up the road from me, and our kids are in the same class at school.
Of course.
So I've caught up with him, and I catch up with him regularly. What a great guy! But let's go right back. I like to sort of start this with a bit of a chat about you and where you came from. So where did you grow up?
I grew up in country Victoria. There's a little town at the bottom of, people might know, Falls Creek
Yeah.
as a ski resort. I grew up in a little town at the bottom of the mountain called Mount Beauty. Um, Grew up there my whole life. That's where all my family were from and that sort of thing. And so went to primary school, high school, played all the sport and that sort of thing
Yeah.
in
Cold
Mount Beauty.
country.
Yeah, like only about 1,500 people. And yeah, skiing on a Thursday instead of going to school was the norm. I just thought that the people who live near the beach must surf on a Thursday or whatever.
Is what
It's
they do.
pretty cool. Yeah.
How far is Mount Beauty from the ski fields? Like you can sneak up there in 20 minutes an hour. How far away is
Yeah,
it?
half an hour up the hill sort of thing. So yeah, like genuinely on a Thursday, you'd go to school, you'd get all your skis out of the bottom of the locker that was underneath the school, pack them onto
Yeah.
the bus, go up and ski all day on a Thursday, come back down. So you had like, bigger days and other days to make up for it. But yeah, that was
So
just the
good.
norm. I'm
Uh,
terrible at skiing.
yeah.
Awful.
Well, I've probably only skied like 3 times in my life, but I grew up in the Blue Mountains, and funny enough, everyone's like the kids that grew up at the beach go surfing, and people are like, oh, did you just go rock climbing up there? And I was like, to be honest, I just didn't really do it. Spent a lot of time in the bush, but I didn't do enough of it. I know that. Well, first of all, you've had a really interesting career from joining up the army early on and then getting into banking and then writing a great book and public speaking and TED talking and then you were fired. We'll come back a bit later about that. But what made you want to join the military in the first place?
I think there was a desire to get out of a small town was definitely a big driver for me. I wanted to go places and do things and have adventures, and the military was definitely appealing to me as a
Yeah.
way to do that. I'd got into uni down in Melbourne and was going to go do law down there, but like that was going to be more reliance on my parents, more I don't know, it just felt like much more of an adventure to join the army. Well, initially I thought I'd join the Navy, went to recruiting in Albury-Wodonga to talk to them about all the roles that were available there. And the dude at the front desk was like, oh, the Navy guy's on a break. Just come talk to me. It's all pretty much the same. And so then, of course, ended up in the army. It's not the same.
In the army, it's not the same at all. We know that.
I was 17. I knew no better. I just went, oh, cool. If it's all the same.
Oh, we'll just join up.
Yeah.
Isn't it funny? Like, I have read your book here, and for those, it's called Dauntless. For those who are on YouTube, you can see it there. And it's a really interesting read. And one of the things I really picked out of it was like these serendipitous sliding doors moments of people's lives, of what leads you down different pathways that you never even foresee them coming. And, is it possible that one of those little moments might hit us today or tomorrow or the next day? But you walk into recruiting in Albury Wodonga, I think it was, somewhere down
Yeah.
there.
Yep.
Maybe go Navy, end up going Army, randomly, like what was a list of jobs, and they're like, hey, just pick that one, electronic warfare operator.
They sort of put you through a bunch of, as everyone knows, joining the military, you do a bunch of aptitude testing, and they sort of see what might be the right fit for you, what you've got some aptitude for in terms of your learning and capability. And sort of after the initial range of testing, then they had me back to do, like, they do a bit of basic Morse, some like, little code breaking activities or looking for patterns and that sort of stuff. And then said, oh, yeah, these are the jobs that are available. You can have all the way up to an H, I think it was at the time. So you could be a site clerk or a EW operator. And I'm like, oh, what is that? What? And they're like, well, it's the highest pay grade you could get. And it's full of secret things that I can't tell you. And I said, yes, sign me up, man. Perfect. That sounds amazing.
Yeah, sold.
Yeah.
So tell us in layman's terms, what does an EW person do, electronic warfare?
So electronic warfare is intercept and analyze enemy communication and give advice on the battlefield. So at the time, you learn how signals work. So how do people communicate using the electromagnetic spectrum? How do you interrupt that if you want to stop people communicating with each other? How do you intercept that to understand what they're saying? How do you decode that? And obviously now there's modern versions. I've been out for ages. So that would involve every communication style that you could possibly imagine. And for EW, the electronic sphere of that, how do you actually manipulate the electromagnetic spectrum to be able to take advantage on the battlefield?
So off to Kapuka for a few weeks. And then where's School of Signals again? Victoria as well, isn't it?
Well, yeah, I did 12 weeks at Kapuka, and then at the time I didn't go to School of Signals. You went straight to Toowoomba. Kabala is where the home of the bear is, and so it's a little base like north of Toowoomba in southeast Queensland, and did about 12 months worth of training there. You learn like Morse code, you learn languages, you learn everything about how the electromagnetic spectrum works, and then you also just figure out how to do all of those things in your early stages. And after that, there was sort of two main postings at the time. This is pre-East Timor, pre-99. The two main postings were to either stay at that same base where the IAT training was and go to the tactical unit, or you would post down to Canberra to what's now Australian Signals Directorate and work on the strategic collect side.
Got it. Did you mention you're in Toowoomba now?
Yeah, I'm in Toowoomba now.
Oh, is this like I just love the town, or what's brought you back to Toowoomba after a full cycle?
No. No, it's where we were when we were younger. Me and my partner, he's also ex-Army and ex-EW. We bought a couple of properties during the times that we were posted up here, and so we're just back up here now, renovating one of those before we sell it and get back on the road.
Got it. So where's home for you now, like on the road?
There's no home for us.
No home?
We are non-traditional people. We were living in Brisbane. Our son, who's now 22, he had finished his high school and had started off at uni and moved in with mates and that sort of stuff. And so we saw the opportunity to actually sell that property and to get on the road and live on the back of our ute on a slide-on camper and just surf and fish around Australia for a couple of years, abandon all our responsibilities. And we're lucky enough to be in a position where we don't need to work full-time. That's been the plan the whole time for us, is to get out of the traditional workforce. And so, we're just enjoying that now.
Well, let's come back to that a little bit later. First of all, though, so we're talking sort of mid-90s, is that right? Pre-Timor? Because you actually, there's all this interesting stuff about females in the Defence Force, particularly, combat roles, and there's always, chirping about it. And there's, whether there's certainly some limited resistance to, females in combat roles for some reason still out there, but you actually did this for real in a couple of early insertions into Timor. Is that right? Tell us
Yeah,
about
so
your trip to Timor.
yeah, I'm really lucky. I came into the military at a really interesting time, joined in 97. And so there was not really a huge amount happening in terms of overseas operations and opportunities. And then in 99, Timor happened. And, I sort of, it's only recently that I realized things like I spoke to someone who was an instructor at Kapuka at the time I was there. And they said, oh, yeah, February 97, we started our integrated platoons. And I'm like, wait, I was February 97. And he's like, yeah, so you would have been in one of the first 3 or 4 platoons where we actually had men and women together moving through Kapuka rather than separate.
Right. I never realized it was that late.
Yeah. So there was Delta Company was all women platoons, and then later on, and same like that integration of people, of men and women within the same units and doing the same thing. The women who'd come before me had done such a great job of making that feel like this is normal and this is what's happened forever, that I never, there was a lot of times that I didn't realize that, we were making those moves right at the start or potentially for early times, that, people had, those doors had only just been opened by the work that people who had come before us had done. So in 99, we went to Timor and we took, as EW, we went across and were embedded with all of the different units that arrived and came over there at the time. So I went over on a Singaporean ship. The reason why I was able to go is because I had a truck license, I had a minimi qualification, and I also had EW. They needed EW operators. And so they're the sort of things when you talk about sliding doors, like I think the big thing I learned in my career was to say yes to opportunities, because you never know what paths that will open for you in the future. Having those couple of quals that, like, at the time might not have seemed like a big deal, they were the ones that opened the door to do all sorts of other interesting things. When we arrived in Timor, maybe 3 days after the main landing force there into Dili, and then immediately we're looking to go and secure the Suai airfield after that. The New Zealand infantry were tasked with that job, and so they didn't have EW with them at the time, so they needed 3 of us to go and embed with them. Same thing, they wanted more firepower in case there was going to be, because we didn't really know whether the Indonesian army was going to extract at the time or what their response was going to be to that move forward. And so they said, yeah, well, let's take someone who's got a minimi qual as well. And so I got to be a part of that. So we trained how we were going to do that infill and what was going to happen when we got on the ground. And 3 days later, I think it was, we were up in choppers and moving in. And, those opportunities just kept coming. I was really lucky. Like at the time I got told, oh, you're going to be the first woman potentially in combat. It was all fine when we landed. But, the same thing, I got told the same thing in Afghanistan in 2006 when I went with 1st RTF. There's the same thing. I went on the first patrol out the gate there and as part of the EW team. And they told me the same thing. Oh, you'll be the first woman in combat. And I'm like, well, I can't possibly be. And how many other people have you told that? Because I was told that in 99. There's got to have been other people who've done stuff since then.
Yeah, I think it's fascinating. Particularly like for me, as Rami, I had the pleasure to spend my time as a young lieutenant at the 3rd Battalion. And part of the 3RR, stories around camp was always about Okusi and the time in the enclave. Tell us a little bit about your time with 3. Like, again, this is embedded in the front line with one of the premium fighting battalions in the army.
Yeah, so moved into Okusi, and there was a couple of remote detachments that were attached there as well. But within the main part of the 3RAR force that was in Akusi itself and overlooking the beach right there, I was part of the team that moved in there. And same thing, it's weird. You used to being one of the only women or the only woman in that scenario, but the attitude I've always experienced from Australian soldiers anytime I've been embedded with infantry, armoured, all the combat corps, they just want to work with competent people. So if you can get in early, prove your competence, prove that you can hold your position on the team and do the things that you need to do, then you're very quickly accepted and included as part of the team. So I've been lucky to have that experience over and over again, and to work for leaders who were like, yeah, this is our team that's going to support us. They're our AW operators. And you can see the look on other people's faces that they go, I think one of those is a chick. But you are just introduced as an asset that's going to support the team to do the things that you need to do. And, we were able to do that. We were able to provide that intelligence, be able to, particularly in Afghanistan, be able to move us out of harm's way, be able to avoid IEDs, be able to understand what the enemy were doing and how they were positioning themselves so that we could make smart choices on the ground. And, it's really obvious when you're in a combat team and moving and you are the forward element, you've got to break in on the radio. Everybody hears that you are the people providing that intelligence. And so you are the reason that you're able to make a range of different decisions. And so as soon as that happens and you're able to make an impact like that, there's no question about should we have them on the team or what's their gender or doesn't make a difference. You just want the capability.
The thing that, as you were speaking, there's the word that kept running through my head was just competent. It doesn't matter as long as you're competent and you've got something to offer. And it's a small thing, but it's no small thing. You mentioned the Minimi qualification, just being that gunner, but being the person. So Minimi, light machine gun, it's just a little bit heavier than a normal rifle, and not just what is a maybe 1.5 kilos, 2 kilos heavier.
Yeah,
but it's not so much. It's not so much the rifle. It's what you have to carry in the pack.
It's the ammo.
So the fact that you, again, someone who leans forward and says yes, it's like a little thing, but it's not a little thing. How these little increments of credibility start stacking up.
Yeah, and I loved it. I loved the statement that gave when I was able to show up, and I was like, I can carry the gun. And I was really lucky to work with a leader just on IMTs, right? When I was a super junior prior to Timor, we were getting ready to build our team for IMT so we could go and practice how to actually be valuable when we embed and hold our own. And there was a whole heap of, he could have chosen anyone to be his machine gunner when you're picking who's going to be on your team for your IMTs and organising it. And he said, I'll take Rach. And I was like, whoa, I was not expected to get picked first. I was the only woman that was going to have that qualification. And he's like, yeah, I'll have Rach. And there was times on that exercise when, man, I was hurt. And it's nothing super complicated. You're just walking around the bush for ages and ages, lugging all your shit, jumping up and down on the ground, practicing fire and movement. And there was days where I was like, I don't think I could do this.
This is hard.
I'm really struggling. I'm trudging, all that sort of gear. And he'd just come over and go, hey, go, Rach. And I go, I don't know how I'm going. I don't think I can do it. And he's like, yeah, I think you'll be fine. Just keep going. That was enough. Like there was no fanfare. There was no special treatment. It was the same type of conversation he had with everyone in the section when he saw their heads drop. And that belief that like, yeah, man, I think you're fine. Keep going, keep rolling.
I'm really glad you raised this particular moment because out of your book, it's one of the points that I actually wrote down and wanted to chat to you about is, I'm just going to unpack it a little bit further. So basically infantry minor tactics, I think it is, you got 2 team leaders and it's just like that old classic, picking teams in the sports ground. And everybody's like, I don't want to get picked last.
I don't want to get picked last. Yeah.
And so they were like picking their people. They picked the 2 experienced ones, but like, it's no small thing, but it's a big thing. This serendipitous sliding door moment of how that one little event just changed how you self-identified and how you felt as a soldier.
Yeah, totally true. And as leaders, we've got the opportunity to give that gift, at the risk of sounding like a wanker, to other people all the time when you choose the unexpected person or when you support them to be more than they thought they could be. At the time I was picked in that section, I was a junior soldier. I was one of limited women that were doing that sort of thing, and that I I always felt like I was having to prove myself. And after that moment, after that exercise, it was only 3 weeks, but it was 3 weeks of lugging the gun around. I kept showing up, and other people swapped it around in their section, that sort of thing. And I wanted to hang on to it. I wanted to continue to do that and have that role. And at the end of the exercise, it completely changed how I felt about myself. I knew I could do it, and knew I could do it a little bit more than what everyone else was doing. I knew I could do it, and I knew I could do it well. I knew I could be part of a team where I could be not just a participant, but a major player, and gave me the confidence to keep saying yes to things in the future, and to realize that I could do things that were much harder than I gave myself credit for. It's one of the biggest lessons I learned in the military, and something that I'm super grateful for, is that ability to, when you think you're at your limit, you're really not. And I just learnt that over and over and over again. And so anytime I think I'm at my limit, I'm like, nah, there's way more. Just keep digging, keep digging, keep digging. There's always, always more.
So we come back from the Timor trip, around 2000, and then it's a bit of regimental time, a bit of time in Canberra.
Yep.
Then Afghanistan has already kicked off with the SF units over there, but Australia's about to send its first, I guess you say, regular unit, which was the Reconstruction Task Force.
Yep.
Now, which battalion did you go over there with?
It was 5-7 at the time before they split. They actually split before we got back home or whatever, but 5-7 and 2 Cav.
Got it. Okay, so this is the first non-SF formed element to go over there.
Yep.
You corporal now, would you be?
Yeah, I was a corporal, yeah.
So what was your team were you a single element capability, or did you have a team over there with you?
Yeah, so we had a 4-man or 4-person det, 2 chicks, 2 dudes, and we had a sergeant, like commander back in the FOB, who would do all the analysis and all the collection and that side, and then a warrant officer who was the liaison to the intelligence cell and everything that went to I forget all the words, right? I've been out for too long. All the all source intel. He would report back into that sort of stuff. So
a 4-person det for the battle group, or for the fighting element?
4 people who would deploy into the field, but that was 4 people for the entirety of the operation. So we'd work in a 2-person team with an interpreter as well. So it'd be a 3-person team that would go out, so that you could provide 24-hour operations while you're in the field.
Got it. And I think at the time we had it, correct me if I'm wrong, it was an infantry company, but basically supporting maybe another company or 2 of engineers.
Yeah, correct.
Yeah, got it. Okay, so, and you've now in TK, Tarankout. It was Dutch controlled at the time, I believe. The Aussies rock in. What was, Tarankout like back then?
Dirty and dusty and dry, which I'm sure it was the entire time. And big HESCO walls. Camp Russell was set up, and so we had EW elements embedded with the SF forces that were there, and so that was great. It's a really small community, electronic warfare. So when we arrived, we already knew the dudes that were there and that had been working with those teams, and so they were able to provide us with a handover of who do we know in the area so far, what are their actions like, what sort of call signs do they use, how do they move, and all that sort of stuff. So had a really great handover there, and had a bunch of the SF guys embed in those first couple of patrols as well to be able to take us through what to do and where to go. There'd been, what our main role was to start to build relationships with the TK community, with the hospital, with the leaders, and then start to expand out from there down through the Trora Valley.
Yep. So 2000 and maybe 6, is it? 5 or 6?
2006.
Okay. So I feel that and again, I'm not an EW or a SIGS guy, but from a capability perspective, it's sort of like in between 2 worlds now, with the digitization of what we're trying to achieve within our combat forces versus what was the enemy's capability like? Was it radios, mobile phones? What were they using?
Our main job there was the radio comms, the handheld radio ICOM stuff, and being able to understand who had what gear, where were they, could we find where they were in the battle space by understanding those signals and how they were working. And also any of their other capabilities that they had. Was there any other things that we could figure out and send to other elements that were back in Australia or that were part of the broader forces that were in Afghanistan at the time, to be able to tip them off to look for other stuff. But on the ground, it was mainly about indications of warning. So are they talking about us? Are they counting us? What weapons are they talking about? Are they thinking about attacking us or talking about attacking us?
Sort of feel it's like a big jigsaw puzzle, you know, like at this stage where there's like not a lot of information out there, but you're sort of grabbing little pieces and seeing if it'll connect, and some things that might not connect today might connect in a week or month or 6 months time. And as part of that broader, you know, information grab.
Yeah, absolutely. And the move from SF is very much about what is happening right now on the ground. Our job was to start to build that broader strategic picture of who had what power, how are they connecting to the broader every other element that was there at the time.
Got it. So I'm just going to facetiously skip over the whole, you know, women in combat thing, unless you want to talk about it. But
no, man.
As a woman, you were on the first patrol out the base.
Yeah.
Yeah. Tell us about it.
Yeah, they just needed an EW in bed, and so there was 2 seats. I was lucky to get selected for one of those, and yeah, we assigned to a car. You go and do all the things that everyone else would do. You go and shoot at the range, fire the weapons, understand how to use all the other weapons that are going to be within the vehicle. We were in a Bushmaster. At the start, you know, you sort of same thing. They know they need to take that element. They know they need to give us 3 seats, but they sort of don't want to as well, because they're like, that reduces our perceived capability and firepower and all that sort of gear. And so, you know, there's friction. There's always friction when you're trying to decide who is the right people to take, how many, where do we put them?
The 3 being the 2 det operators and the interpreter.
Yeah, that's right. Yep. So we'd all done some basic language beforehand, the 4 of us that had gone over. We all had other languages beforehand, and then went down and did 3 months worth of Pashto before we went to Afghanistan. If you've done any language training, 3 months of Pashto is not going to get you very far. So it's enough to be able to identify words or understand keywords or a little bit of speech pattern, that sort of thing, but definitely not enough when people are talking in coded, like veiled speech or coded languages, using things like watermelon instead of bomb. If you don't have enough language capability, you can't figure out
not even
the connection between those things. So having people who were native speakers that were part of our interpreter team were absolutely crucial. And then it's our job to try and understand and analyze, like, who is that person? What's the likelihood of that being a real threat? How does that integrate with other information that we know? When is the right time to be able to decide that that's an actual threat to our team? And so that's what happened on the very first patrol, as we were out the base and had gone to the hospital to be able to meet with the leaders that were there. We heard them counting off the cars and trying to determine how many people were there and what sort of weapons we had. And they were talking about their RPG capability. And so we're able to identify what the threat was, that it was to us, that there was where we thought they were, and then be able to, the special forces dudes that were with us at the time were like, right, let's go out and find out what's happening there. And we're able to neutralize that threat. And then we were able to get back to the base.
Cool. It's again, I'm coming back to that thing, competence and capability. You know, if you're the maneuver team commander, this is a vital asset for the survivability of the team. Now, can you actually, again, a sig numpty here, can you spot where they are, or triangulate? Is that the right term? And
yeah, depending on how many assets you've got in the field or what sort of capability you've got with you, you can determine where someone is. Sort of, what do people know about? Like, you know, like if you're using your mobile phone and you ping off a tower and you might be able to see what tower that is, or you're moving between different locations and you switch from one to the other and you lose signal in between. That's sort of a bit of a signal thing that can show you where someone might be. They might be between, if they were on this tower and then on that tower, then they might be moving in this direction or moving in this way. And so there's all those sort of clues that exist within how signals move in the air, and if you're in multiple locations and you can see them from multiple angles, see the signal, then you can figure out where people might be. Or you might, if you only got one asset like we did, you're just providing a general direction, but sometimes the lay of the land will show you, oh, if they're generally in that direction, well, then they're likely to be in that building or on that high point. Or
it's all just about bracketing the picture, eliminating extremities and bring it into the closest picture possible. I want to just draw one of the worries in your book out, where I believe you're heading up to a night camp, and basically you're on this side of the mountain, and the commanders basically come down and said, right, this is my recommendation for the spot tonight. What does everybody think? Talk us through that moment when, your guidance basically got everybody to pick up and shift and move a bit further, and then what happened next?
Yeah, so this was much later. And so what was great about that first patrol and being able to provide that indication warning is that there was just immediate trust. The combat team commander was like a major. And so although you're a corporal or a SIG on the within that command structure, the trust was really high that we could provide quality information that would help them make great decisions. And so this was much later, maybe 3 or 4 months later. So we built that reputation really credibly. We were on a patrol. Yeah, there was a team in Overwatch from 2CAV. There was maybe like 8 bushies, and then we were going to set up for the night, and it was sort of between 2 hills. No one's going to set us up between 2 hills, but there was a higher mountaintop above us, and we were sort of off to one side.
Yep.
And I knew that where the guys who'd been communicating, where the Taliban had been talking about what are they doing and where are they going whilst we'd been on the patrol earlier in the day and earlier in that week, they were going to be on the wrong side of the mountain, as in hard for me to be able to intercept with the gear that we had at the time. And so as the combat team commander got everyone together to go, okay, we're thinking about using this as our night lock. What do you think? He moves around the circle and asks everybody about what's the advantages and disadvantages of where we are now. And I'm a long way, even to be included in that meeting, like that's the sort of brilliant leadership that we were lucky to work for, is that I'm a shitty corporal, right? These are lieutenants as a minimum talking about what they'd like or where they need to be, talking about big teams under their command. And you were always included in that meeting as the EW team commander.
I love the humility of it straight away. And it's not only logical, but smart to not know everything. And you've got a team of experts there to do their job and gain confidence in capability.
Well, that commander, he was fantastic and regularly would ask his team first before providing his opinion on anything, so that you're just more likely to hear possible pitfalls that you didn't think about, or to be able to get a broader view first before going, okay, now I actually have all that information. Here's what my position is. If you as the commander say what you want to do first, the likelihood of everyone that works for you complying is high. So it was a really great approach. So, I spoke up and I said, look, I think we'll be able to do some of the job here, but we're going to miss out on hearing a bunch of stuff from these particular players. So I'd actually prefer us to be over there or whatever, or on a different spot on the mountain. And there's a lot of people, even in that initial setup, you're sort of a bit set up. And I'm like, oh God, I hate being that guy.
Yeah.
And he said, okay, cool. Well, we're going to move. It's more important to us. So the options sort of at that point are either to turn on your ESM, so turn on the system that just blanks everybody else's ability to communicate, which means if you've got a remote detonation device, you can't detonate it.
Put you in a bubble, so to speak.
Yeah, sort of like just swamping the airways with noise, so that if anyone's trying to use the airways, they can't. But it means that then you also don't know what they're doing. And so that's the choice. And so the preference from the commander was we'd actually rather know what they're saying than swamp them out or whatever at this point if we're going to stay here for the night.
It's almost like active patrolling with SIGs, with signals, like actively reaching out for the information turned into intelligence,
and
using the electronic.
Yeah, that was the choice the whole time that the commanders made while we were there. So a lot of the time when you're moving in vehicles as well, in subsequent patrols, as the technology got better and better or whatever, you can choose to actually be driving with that active block out, so that even if, so it would have to be like a, you know, a pressure point trigger to work rather than an electronic signal to be able to set something off. But yeah, so that's that choice that commanders have to make all the time. Do I want to the security of knowing that no one can detonate anything with a remote, or do I want to be able to actively hear what's happening, but risk that capability? I leave that open for the enemy. And so, yeah, he was like, no, we would rather actually hear actively what is happening. So we moved the patrol, set up in a new area, and overnight, as we got towards, I don't know, like 9 or 10 o'clock at night. So after everyone's well bedded down and you're moving into your subsequent shifts overnight, we heard one of the most active players in the area starting to talk about counting vehicles. It's a really typical start of what the enemy are doing, is they're counting people, counting vehicles, start to number off things that what they think they want to do. And so you're checking that against your numbers. Are they talking about us? Are they talking about someone else? At that time, there's no one else there. Like, they're talking about us. No one else is driving a Bushmaster around. They were talking about coming up one of the re-entrants towards where our new position was that I'd asked us to move to. But they said, oh, don't go all up at once. They were talking about moving in 2s and 3s and how they were going to move into position to be able to attack the position or explore the position or whatever their intention was. And so at that time, I'm like, oh, is this enough evidence to wake up the commander?
Wake up the boss.
Yeah. And that's the balance you try to make all the time. There's constant information coming in as an EW operator. It's just walls and walls of information. It's your job to try and be the filter to be able to decide what's credible enough to be able to need to take action, what's not credible, how much of a picture do you need to build before you start to say, this is what I think, this is who it is, this is what I think could happen. And so I sort of sat on it for a bit. I talked to the interpreter about what did he think, and we sort of went back and forth, waited until we knew what was happening. And we said, okay, we think they're going to get ready to start moving in the next sort of 10 minutes to start this. If this is us, if this is where they're moving, if this is what their intention is. So I went and woke the boss up, told him what was happening. He's like, cool, let's get everyone up. And I'm like, the only girl.
This is dangerous, you know, everyone's just bunkered
down for the night. The only girl on the patrols going, something's going to happen.
Yeah.
Because, you were the only woman. There was another chick that did the job as well. Fantastic operator, really, really competent as well. So same thing between all of our teams. Everyone who was there in that team was fantastic, really great at their job and just delivered every single time. So, but they didn't let me and Ange go out on the same patrols. They kept us separated. So anytime me or her went out on the patrol, you're the only woman in a team of 150 people or whatever all the time. I'm like, okay, so the only chick going, something's going to happen. Yeah. So wake up the commander. And because of that reputation that we'd all built, that, we don't try and overreact. We try and get the whole picture before we start to make a move. He got everyone up. We all stood too. And then, within minutes,
they were.
with night vision goggles, we were able to, the guys that were at the top of the turrets looking out, were able to go, yep, I can see them. Yep, here's where they're moving. They're in 2s and 3s. I can see them in a big group at the bottom of the hill. Then they're splitting into groups and moving up. And so, and we're able to there was lots of opportunities for us to be able to stop things before they happened. And although that's unsexy in terms of worries, that's the job. The job is to try and move us into positions where we are in power, in control, with the knowledge all the time, so we don't have to do those things.
Did that particular instance end up being a contact?
No.
It didn't?
No, we just were able to, they just got a call. We just called out the old stop.
Yeah, literally.
Who goes there?
Yeah.
And they abandoned it all and went back down the hill.
Fascinating. What a job, eh?
It was such a cool job, a cool job at such a cool time. Obviously, technology went from Morse code tapping HF signals to the way we communicate now with all of our technology on a phone within the span of the time that I was in the job. And so, you know, so much to learn, new capabilities all the time, new ways to try and understand how you could manipulate and exploit those capabilities. It was, yeah, cracker of a job. Super grateful.
I got to admit, I really, look, we were lucky, you know, in that inverted commas, you know, to be in the army at a time where there was, you know, active deployments and to get away and have a look over at these, you know, amazing places, and do these amazing things like, but when do you get to the point, like you're back after that deployment? Is it itch starting to sort of scratch now in terms of there's something else out there for me? Or when did this sort of tipping point start coming for you?
It was actually while I was away. So I was 28 at the time. Our son was 5, so he'd started prep and all that sort of gear while I was away. And I just sort of went, you know, I really felt like that was going to be the pinnacle of my military career. I'm like, when will I get a chance to do anything as impactful as this ever again? And to be truthful, that took some time to sit with after I left defense as well. Like at 28, I felt like I had done the most important work, the most impactful work of my entire life. So like, what's the point of it all post this? So, you know, I think that's real. That's real for lots of people, that you go, wow, that was a great job. I love that job. Whatever it is in life, when you move into those next phases, there's a period of having to adjust to that. So with that time away, I spent about 11 out of 12 months away from home in the prep to go to Afghanistan. So we were actually posted to Canberra. I knew that the regular army was standing up a deployment to Afghanistan, and I'd already been selected before we even posted up. And so we went and did the Pashto course down in Melbourne at the School of Languages. We'd done a bunch of like training to be able to integrate well with 5-7 and all the rest of the assets that went over there. And so, I'd been away from home about 11 months out of 12. And I'm like, okay, it's probably time for me to start thinking about a bit of more traditional parenting career. We were both in the military. Was really high tempo. Iraq was still going at the time as well. So every time I'd come back from deployment, my partner would be ramping up to go on to the next one. And so they were great. They really helped us out by offsetting those rotations so that we weren't both away at the same time. But something needed to give, and I felt really ready to step out and start something new. So I put in my discharge. I had long service leave, and so took long service leave. I hung out at school with Will, took him to prep, and went and did swimming lessons with the preppies and reading and all that sort of stuff. And that was great. It made me realize I do not want to work with children.
That's fair. That's fair.
Yeah, but it was unreal. Had a great time. And then went, right, so what's going to be the next career? What do I do next? I'd always enjoyed accounting and maths and that sort of gear at school. And I thought, oh, maybe a bank would be the right move. And so that's what I thought I'd try for next.
Up to the bank.
Yeah.
And then, but you, random, I think it was a little bit random because I think you were expecting just to go like, become a, telegirl or something like that. But you actually got a job as a bank manager straight up.
Yeah. So
a branch manager.
Yes. So I absolutely was expecting to come in and be a teller or one of those, an entry level role at the bank. I'd done my resume up. I walked around town. I dropped it off and met a bunch of people and had a few interviews. But one of the banks that I went to, they had a series of managers that they'd promoted from within the finance sort of world, and it hadn't quite worked for them. They were prepared to take a risk on someone that had leadership, and like I was a corporal, I was far from high on the ladder, and that had a bit of leadership, but didn't have any banking at all. And they said, that's no worries, we can teach you all of that. And so I ended up getting a role as a bank manager as my very first job in banking.
Straight up.
Yeah.
How does this work? You're like, I don't know how this works, but I know how to run people, and I know how to support.
Yeah.
It's about that empowerment, isn't it? There's one little funny. I actually went and did some mobile lending with ANZ Bank as I transitioned from the army, and there's a funny little anecdote in your book about what's break freeze. How do I breaking a
Break
mortgage,
costs.
like break
Yeah.
costs, but it's ultimately your job is to run the team and understand what your bosses need to make them good and make that happen. And that's leadership at any factor.
Yep. Totally true. It,
But then banking, sorry, after you.
oh yeah, it's absolutely true. Just understanding like who is there, what are the things they want to achieve in their careers, how do you help them do that? And then like, what's the big picture? What's the big goal of the organization? What are the things that are important to them? What are they measuring? How are they determining who's performing and not? And make the two of those meet.
And it'd be remiss of me while we're talking about banking, not to shout out one of my favorite people, Julie Hall. I know that a good friend of yours as well.
Jules, what a legend.
Yeah, what
Absolutely.
a legend, a great champion of the veteran community.
Yeah.
But then ultimately, tell us about how you ended up getting fired. What's this latest chapter in your journey?
Yeah, so it sounds bad, fired, but it actually stands for financially independent, retire early.
Yep.
So it's a goal we'd been working towards for ages. We when we were probably in our early 20s, that time when you're in the military and you think that you've done it all and you're ready for all the adulting that comes next, and maybe we should get married. Every time we saved up enough to actually pay for a wedding, we went, this is ridiculous. That's a lot of money for a party. We could just like buy a house. So that's what we did. So every time,
maybe this one that you're in, renovating as we speak, one of these.
Yeah, that's one of them. Yeah. So as we sort of, I don't know, started talking about what our goals were in life and where we want to be, me and my partner, we both realized like that the work that if you're in a job, a regular job, that ties you to a place. And so then that place needs to be close enough to work for you to be able to commute effectively and all those sort of things. And so then that determines how much you need to pay and where you need to live and all those sort of things. And we're like, how do you untether yourselves from all of that? Like, how can you just be wherever you want to be? And the answer is to not have to work. So all of our choices that we started to make about our careers, including when I left the military, was about how do we make choices that keep stepping us towards not having to do traditional work. So like when I got out, Damo was still in the military, and that was deliberate for me to step out, establish myself in a new career, start to earn more, start to create more opportunities, which would give him the opportunity, if he wanted to at that point, to get out as well. So like really strategic planning. And when we're faced with choices throughout all of our life, through our 20s, 30s, 40s, the question that would be at the fore is, does this take us closer to getting out of the regular workforce or further away? And every choice we made was not always that direction. We bought a ski boat, like that does not take you closer to your goal of retiring early, but it did like really enrich our lives. We spent all of our weekends skiing with Will and taking mates out and teaching him to water ski and that sort of thing. So like there's a balance between, if you ask the question, it means you're making a deliberate choice. Is this taking us closer or further away from our goals? Well, it's taking us further away, but it's worth it. You're then not questioning it. At no point have we gone, geez, I wish I didn't do that, because it was an active choice. So yeah, we actually didn't know the term FIRE at the time. We just were like, how do we build enough wealth outside of super so that we don't have to work till we're 60 or 65? How do we like just get out of this rat race? I think, part of that, my dad died when he was 55. And so he'd worked all his life. He died like 6 days after he turned 55. So this idea of what you're going to do with your retirement didn't exist. And I think that became, a bit of a wake up to me that like, why would I wait for what society determines is the path I should be on? Like, can't I just design my own destiny? And so that, definitely drove us to go, well, how do I get out of that? How do I change doing what everybody else just seems to be on the train of doing, and do whatever we want? We're both like lucky enough to have gone through our military service without any major injuries or impacts or any of that sort of stuff. So we're not on DVA pensions. It's all about us just being in charge of what comes next. What do we want to do with it, and how do we want to shape what comes next in our lives?
I guess one of the things that I Now, like all of us, probably browse social media, and there was something that you put on social media a couple of months ago, and it sort of really made me want to reach out and actually have this chat to you. And it's to summarize, I think what your point was, for me, it was about taking accountability for micro decisions.
Mm,
Now, I've got all sorts of big things I want to achieve, whether it be like, through family or fitness or health. But it was a little bit of a fish in the face for me when I sort of clicked on this moment about a micro decision and stacking up micro decisions through the day, like whether it be what's my choice going to be when I open the fridge, or what am I going to do in the next little moment of my life, not
yeah.
just waiting for tomorrow to come to kick off that next thing that I go for. So that's been a real eye opener for me, is taking accountability for my micro decisions that I make, and I make 20, 30, 40 of them a day. And
Yeah.
let's take these little wins and keep stacking them up. Particularly for me when it comes to like health and fitness, because this is you seem to be like what, surfing heaps and lifting heaps. This is
Yeah.
tell us about that.
They're all new, right? So
Yep.
like after leaving the army, I was sort of and had a corporate career for about a decade. I sort
Yep.
of lost a lot of that playing sport. And I think that's a time of life too, right? Like there's these
Yeah.
seasons of life. And when your kids are playing sport, going to school, have 100 other activities or whatever, you sort of give a lot of yourself away because they're the priority at the time. And we actively talked about this. Like at times with our careers, we'd go, you have the primary career or I have the primary career. And so whether that's because of what you earn or what the opportunity are within that career. And, during the time that I worked at the bank, Will was heading into year 10, 11, 12 and that sort of thing. And we said, well,
Yep.
actually, Will has the priority career at the
Yeah.
moment. His school is the priority. So we won't take promotions that take us away from where we are. Stability, being able to let him play all the footy he wants to play, they're the priorities. And so, you sort of, you end up inadvertently, you don't play netball anymore, and you stop going for a walk, and you're just reducing the things that you're doing, and it's only one day they emerge as adults that you go, oh wait, what is my life? Who am I now? Like,
Yeah.
and that's a choice as well. You talk about choices. I think a lot of people, and myself included, you end up just being this version of you that was right for the time. But when you realize you're in a transition period, you've got choices you can make. You can
Yeah.
go, oh, I can pick my sport back up. I can do something else. I can be an entirely new, different person for this phase of life. And so I'd sort of not realized that moving was so critical for my mental health. I need to walk, I need to move. That's absolutely intrinsically linked for me to be able to go, the more I move, the better my brain works. And
Yeah.
so I tried to do what I always did in the army. I'll go for a run. One of the big things I learned though was that doing things that were related to my military service meant that I always had these markers in place. Oh, I should be able to hit a 2.4 run in under 11 minutes because that's a decent time, and blah, blah, blah. So every time I went for a run, I'm like, well, if I didn't hit that time, I was shit. And
Yep.
that's not a great narrative to try to pick something back up again or do something new, and also being 20 years older than that. So I found powerlifting, and there was something that drew me to it straight away. It was about, as a woman, a lot of the messaging you get is about being smaller and less and all of those sort of things. It
Yep.
was about being bigger and stronger and more, the number you can lift, it's you against you too. You can't walk in and expect to squat 300 kilos like the best women can in the world, or the best woman can in the world. You've got to start where you're at. And it doesn't actually matter where you'd like to start. The weights will fucking tell you where you are
Yeah.
at, and that is where you have to start. Bloody love it. It's a great community of people who are just so supportive. They'll barrack for your shitty little lift that's like a
Yeah.
quarter of
I
what
love it.
they lift, and be all about going, yeah, man, love that. Like, what are you going to do next week? And I don't compete. I'm not interested. I've like deliberately gone into a phase of life where I've been I've been a competitive person. I've wanted to be the best or achieve a lot. This is the season is about just
Self.
participating, being in it, but like not being so in it that it's destructive. And so so powerlifting's been great, absolutely loved it, can't get enough of it, and is a whole new mindset. I'm 46 as well, so perimenopausal, everything's changing. I'm losing muscle mass. I'm having hormonal changes going on, and like lifting weights and building muscle has been absolutely unreal for stabilizing heaps of those symptoms, and just giving me great capability to build an old lady rig that's highly capable. I don't have to give up and like just start to wear mum clothes and like be depressed. I can actually be whatever I want, but that's because I'm actively choosing to build that rig. And then surfing, a couple of years ago, I had a mate who said, hey, I've always wanted to learn to surf. And I said, yeah, so have I. And she just couldn't make the program at the time. I went on an 8-week learn to surf program. Loved it. Cannot get enough of it. It's changed our whole life. Recruited Damo. He now comes and surfs as well. And we just get out on our dirty, big, foamy surfboards and go catch the smallest waves that are humanly possible and froth it like we've been barreled at bells.
I love it. I love it. So my wife's also loves doing powerlifting and surfing as well. So you'd probably get on really well with her. But just she's been out for about 2 or 3 years now. And I think she's probably out there like 2 or 3 times a week. Went on her first girls surf camp last weekend.
Oh, yeah. Yep.
So with about 8 or 9 girls up to Crescent Head. The only problem is she's got this whole like language that I don't understand. That's just everything's like gnarly again. But she's ripping it. I got to say, she's doing really, really well. And
that's so good.
But I haven't quite.
Great spot.
Yeah, I haven't quite got out there myself. I guess, Rach, what I would really have a chat to you today about was, there's all those sayings about the journey is the reward, and just sort of stop and smell the roses, but. We all have this veneer of what we're doing that we put in a public forum, but I think there's a little bit more substance behind what you're doing and where you are, and just telling a story from like an amazing military career. I'd just like anyone else listening sort of reflect on that, smelling roses, and why are you like? I hate grinding and hustling. I don't mind working hard. We've got to work hard sometimes to get to an end point, but we've got to understand why we're working hard and what's the purpose of where we're going. Because, life's short and precious. And, I got the big fitty this year.
Good work.
And I'm looking forward to sort of understanding, what can I be better at in my next chapter. Then there's still opportunities for me to, maybe lifting is one of them, that I could still be stronger than I've ever been. I probably won't, never dunk. Still will never dunk a basketball.
Don't say never, man. It's still
I
in
don't
my
know.
future.
Well, I know. Maybe I could, mate. But certainly things like lifting, and there's other things that I can do that is in the next chapter.
I think this idea that you get to choose who you want to be in these new chapters, new seasons, however you see it, like you don't have to be who you were. You don't have to make the choices that you made before. You can design it to be whatever you want. And I think, you touched before about the small choices. It's super hard to like do a massive overhaul and go, I'm going to completely change direction. It's super easy to go, well, what's my next choice? And can I make it the next right choice that takes me closer to that goal? And get it often more right than wrong. You will absolutely start stepping towards it.
Yeah. This is technically like a business podcast. Well, not really. It's just me gobbing off with people. But, I always say, self-employment is taking control of your own destiny. You don't have to be, multi-million-dollar business owner or anything like that. One of the reasons I love supporting, self-employment is just that choice of your pathway to be in control of what you want. It doesn't matter what revenue or income or anything like that you do. You found this beautiful point where you can be fired, live life under your own rules, under your own control, and what's next for you guys. So after you renovate this place, what's next in the chapter? Hitting the road again, or
I think we'll hit the road again. We haven't done Tassie yet, so that's definitely on the list. I don't know if I'm cool enough to surf Tassie. We might just fish for Tassie. And NT we haven't seen enough of. We did about a year in WA. I'd go back in a heartbeat. There's 100 other surf breaks on the east coast of Australia that I absolutely want to go and take my dirty foamy out and go and bash around in the whitewashing. So
love it.
like there's I don't know. I think it is a chapter of adventure. Will's doing his master's and is, on his next chapter. It's a chance for us to, just avoid responsibility.
Well, I guess it comes down whenever you got the house renovated and you drive to the coast, depending what season it is, whether you turn left and go up north or you turn right and head down south. And if they're the biggest choices you've got to make, that's not too bad a situation you're in.
Yeah, we're super lucky. We absolutely know it and appreciate it every day.
Well, Rach, I just want to say thank you for sharing your time and your journey with us. For anyone else out there, we do talk a lot about, business, but business is for me just a vessel to get somewhere. Let's not, Rachel, author, speaker, investor, you've set your life up to be able to get to this point and the choices that you've made to allow you to have this life. And for me, part of what we do at the veteran business community is just help people get to where their place is. Your place isn't my place. And, I've got a 6 and a 9-year-old as I turn 50 this year. So I'm paying for the sins of my youth in a great journey of my chapter. But if you're interested in talking about self-employment or business or connecting with, myself and Rach, veteranbc.com is where we are. So Rachel, you're on LinkedIn. Jump on, we'll throw your LinkedIn into the show notes, but thank you for joining us today.
No worries. Thanks so much for having me, Pete.
Pleasure. Take care. My name's Pete Liston. It's been a real pleasure to chat with Rach today. Come and say good day. Take care.